Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. Today's range report is on a big boy revolver. This is the 629 Classic by Smith Wesson, otherwise known as the 629-6, and is the stainless steel version of the Model 29, chambered in .44 Magnum, which of course is a gun that was made famous in the Dirty Harry movies and at one time was the most powerful handgun in the world. Now today we have bigger revolvers chambered in more powerful cartridges, but when this thing hit the market, it was definitely a game-changing revolver. And I don't know if for me, a cartridge this big and this powerful has any practicality, but I understand why people have fallen in love with this gun and still use it today under certain conditions and for certain applications. But before we get into this range report and I tell you about the things I like and don't like about this particular gun, I want to thank the people that always make these range reports possible. First and foremost is the owner of this awesome revolver. He is a local subscriber and fan of the channel. His name is Ken, and he has lent other guns to the channel. So thank you so much, Ken. It's an honor to get to shoot such a cool piece. I also want to thank my Patreons as always, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here. You guys might know that I am a YouTube bad boy. Not all the content I make is monetizable. Apparently, YouTube says I am not community friendly. I don't get it. I think I make PG content and educational content about firearms, but go figure. And as always, I want to thank the person that provides all of the ammunition for these range reports and is my primary sponsor, one of the greatest grip manufacturers out there, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And I know if you're here watching this video, you're a huge fan of wheel guns. You like revolvers, and part of the big aesthetics of a revolver that can make or break it if it looks really special, of course, are the grips. Now these are just old Smith Wesson rubberized grips, but I know if I owned a revolver like this, I'd want to get a set of Brownworks grips. Brownworks is a custom grip company, and Mark over there is an artist. He can make a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. He is doing stuff that almost no other grip company is doing. He makes one-off custom grips, and customer service is his top priority. He wants to make sure that you have the product that you are looking for, something that is going to be special, and make sure that your firearm stands out. So if you like fine firearms and you want a set of fine wood grips that nobody else has, please go check out his website. I'm going to put a link in the description below and as a pinned comment, as well as a discount code for 10% off your first order. I'm imploring you, go over there, see what he has to offer. And if you don't find what you're looking for, please make sure to contact him. Tell him what you're looking for, what gun you want grips made for, what you want on those grips, from custom logos and engravings to different colors and textures, anything you can imagine. I guarantee you he can help you out and make what you're looking for. His stuff is top of the line. Nobody else is making grips like his. So please go over there, check out his website, use the discount code, and when you contact him, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. So let's go ahead now and talk about this awesome revolver. I've already told you this is the 629, a stainless steel version of the Model 29, and this is a modern production. Now, a lot of people, when it comes to the Model 29, like the old ones, the Dash 2s, the ones that have the pinned barrel and the recessed cylinders. And those are the ones that were made around the time of Dirty Harry. Now, that movie came out well before my time, but it is my understanding that when that movie came out, the Model 29 was sold out everywhere. Everybody wanted to have a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world. Make my day. And then people actually took them to the range and realized, oh my gosh, .44 Magnum is one stout cartridge. So a few years later, a whole bunch of them flooded the used market because everyone shot them and went, ouch. It's a cool concept, and I know there's a lot of people out there, especially in the gun world, that want the biggest and the baddest. And that is definitely what Smith Wesson tries to deliver with this particular gun. Now, the cartridge itself was designed by Elmer Keith, and he was the same guy that developed the 357 Magnum. And essentially, he took a 44 Special, elongated the case, and put a lot more powder behind it. What's the point of the 44 Magnum? Why do you want something so powerful in a revolver? I think when this came out, it was kind of a passion project for Elmer Keith. He just kind of wanted to see what were the limits of a revolver. But I also think this cartridge was designed more for hunting, for game hunting, for people that want to hunt with a revolver. And yes, there is a part of the population of hunters that like to do handgun hunting over rifle hunting. And so you need a pretty stout cartridge to take down large game. I know that there's also people that live in places like Alaska that will carry a 44 Magnum, because if you have anything less and you're attacked by a grizzly bear, a 9mm just isn't going to cover it. You gotta have something this powerful or more. So the 44 Magnum definitely has a place, a purpose, and a practicality. But for the average gun guy, kind of where does it fit in your collection? Now, personally, I own one gun in 44 Magnum. I'll show it to you right here. I do have the reproduction from Smith & Wesson of the Model 29. This is the one with the 6.5-inch barrel that is blued, and this is just like the one in Dirty Harry. This is the Model 29-10. It is not the pinned and recessed version. I know that those older versions were a little bit more complex to make, and of course Smith & Wesson is trying to streamline the manufacturing process, so I totally get where they're coming from. Some people like these modern ones, some people don't. The big advantage to the modern 29s or the 629s is the metallurgy. It is my understanding that the original 29s, the pre-29s, and the 29-2s, the ones from the Dirty Harry era, they could be bent. The frames could be bent with enough usage. But these modern ones with the more forged material and the forged metals actually are much more durable. Now, this one has never been shot. This just stays in the collector presentation case. And I bought it because it is such an iconic movie weapon. So I've had this for a long time and it sits on top of my safe. It's just a great gun to look at, but I've never shot it. Mainly because large bore revolvers and very powerful Magnum revolvers have just never been my thing. Part of it is they're hard for me to shoot because I have rheumatoid arthritis. A lot of people don't know that. So when I shoot really powerful guns, it can hurt and I don't enjoy it. So what's the point in having a gun and shooting a gun if you can't enjoy it? So that's what this gun is and kind of my biases towards it. So I always want to be upfront and honest with you guys. Let's talk about the things that I like and don't like. And let's always start with the positive first. First, this gun is a Smith & Wesson. And from my perspective, when it comes to the major revolver manufacturers, Smith & Wesson makes the best revolver. I don't think they make aesthetically the best looking revolver. I think that goes to Colt. But when it comes to the mechanics and the function, I think Smith has everybody else beat. Ruger and Colt especially. Smith & Wesson revolvers just work. They make a ton of revolvers, and the evolution of the revolver has come a long way. They use a lot of modern materials like scandium and aluminum in particular models, and they really go, I think, above and beyond to make a quality revolver. I love the fact that this gun is in stainless steel. Even though I like the look of the blued steel Model 29 that I have, stainless steel in a revolver just has a great look as well, but it's also super easy to clean, and I love that. For me, a stainless steel revolver just has the most practical use, especially if you're going to clean and want to have longevity in your particular firearm. Now, getting back to Smith & Wesson's manufacturing techniques, I love the fact that they use forged metal. One of my complaints with Ruger revolvers, and I know there's going to be a lot of Ruger fans out there, is that they use cast metal, and so their frames have to be bigger. And while Ruger does have a mastery over cast metal, for me, the revolvers just are too beefy. When you have forged metal, you have a very dense material. The frame doesn't have to be as big and it's more durable. I like the fact that they use forged metal over the cast that other companies use. Cast is a cheaper manufacturing technique. Forged is a little bit more expensive, and why Smith & Wesson revolvers cost more, but that forging, I think, goes a long way and something about Smith & Wesson's that I really like. Another design feature of Smith & Wesson's that I do appreciate and I feel is more ergonomic is the cylinder release. With Smith & Wesson's, you push forward to release the cylinder, but with Colts you pull back. And I find just in a shooting situation, pushing forward on that cylinder release is more natural and a little bit more easy. So I do prefer that design over the Colt design, even though I'm a huge Colt fan. I also like the fact that a 44 Magnum revolver, you can shoot 44 special. It gives you a much more pleasant experience. It's like with a 357 revolver, you can shoot 38 special through it. You can save money and save your hands because of all of that recoil. But if you have to, you can definitely load it up to higher pressures and use those Magnum cartridges so you have multiple chamberings in the same firearm. Now let's talk about the one thing about this gun that I don't like. And I think it's the biggest complaint with Smith Wesson revolvers since the 1990s. Now, one of the big mistakes Smith Wesson did in the 1990s, when there was a push for gun control during the Clinton administration, Smith Wesson kind of worked with them and said, okay, we'll try to design guns that are more safe or non-assault weapony. Yeah, that's not a real term, but they worked with the Clinton administration, and many gun rights activists and shooters don't appreciate that, and they kind of boycotted Smith for a while. And one of the things that Smith added to their revolvers was a cylinder lock. Now, this cylinder lock is here on the side of the frame, right there, and it allows the owner to lock the pistol out. So when this lock is engaged, and it's that little hole right there, it prevents the gun's trigger from being able to be pulled. And some people from the era and still today jokingly refer to that as the Hillary hole, because it reminds them of Smith & Wesson working with the Clinton administration on gun control. Now, I think Smith & Wesson, since that time, has kind of rebranded themselves and has worked past that, and a lot of people have forgotten, but some people do have longer memories. Now, I am a stockholder in Smith & Wesson, but I do remember I have forgiven them to a certain point, but why they still include this lock makes absolutely no sense to me. They're the only company that does it, and one of the problems with these locks is they can accidentally become activated under extreme recoil. Now, in a gun like a 44 Magnum, that is a possibility of having. Now, I don't personally know anyone who has had this problem, but I have heard of many stories of that lock activating when people are at the range. I don't know anybody that actually uses it for its design purpose. I don't know anybody that actually puts in the key to use it, but I'm sure there is. It's a silly thing to put in there since no one else is doing it, and it reminds people of a time of Smith & Wesson that they probably want to forget. But that's the only thing about the revolver just here on the table I don't like. So let's go ahead and get this thing to the range. Now I'm going to start off with 44 Special. I just want to make sure the gun works, it functions, make sure it's accurate, and also save my hands. Now I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is a hard gun for me to shoot with 44 Magnum, so you're not going to see me shoot a whole bunch of it. So this might not be a complete range report where you see me dump 100 rounds through this. I'm going to get through some different loadings of it, but trust me, it hurts. And because of that, you're not going to see me shoot it a whole bunch. So let's get this thing to the range. I'm going to set the target up at 7 yards, put 2 cylinders full of 44 Special through this thing. I want to test the trigger in single action first, just see if the gun is accurate and how well it shoots. So let's get to the range. And what can I say? The gun works as designed and as I expected it would. The single action trigger is great. In fact, I really love the single action triggers in stock Smith & Wessons, and the gun is really accurate. And shooting 44 Special through this big frame revolver is so pleasant. It's a great gun to shoot. So I really have no complaints so far whatsoever. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do, load up another cylinder, and I'm going to try to shoot this thing with 44 Special in double action. Now, when it comes to guns like Sig Sauer P-Series pistols, I often shoot the double action better than I do the single action, but it seems to be the exact opposite when it comes to revolvers, so I don't really have high hopes for my grouping here. I'm going to try to take my time, but I have never shot double action revolvers well at all. I know some of you guys are probably going to laugh at me, say, "You're a terrible shot, you shouldn't be reviewing guns." Whatever, and that's totally fine. But I'm just telling you, I'm an average gun guy that usually shoots semi-autos. And as I hope you saw, I shot single action pretty darn well. But we're going to try this thing double action and see what happens to this group and just make sure it functions as well as it did in single action. So let's see how I do. And that was absolutely terrible. I'm telling you, I took my time. I just don't shoot these things well. And that's something that is similar to every Smith Wesson that I shoot in double action. It's one of the reasons why when it comes to new gun owners and they're told, hey, I'm supposed to go out and buy a revolver, and they buy those double action only revolvers without a hammer because they say, it's not going to snag in your purse or your pocket. And I go, you want to have a revolver that can shoot single action and double action if you're going to own a revolver. It's just my personal preference and from my own experience. And I like to think I shoot enough that I should be able to shoot one of these better than that. But for me, you got to have a single action option on your revolver. It's cool if you don't want it, but that's just my personal preference and what I tell people that are looking into revolvers. Don't buy a double action only revolver. In my opinion, you're going to regret it because that trigger pull is so heavy every single time. So now I want to start getting into the 44 Magnum loadings. We're going to start off with some Hornady lever action 44 Magnum. So I think this is a loading that's designed more for, as I said, the lever action guns. But I don't think it's overly too powerful when it comes to a revolver like this. So I'm looking forward to my first shots through this on 44 Magnum. Now, when it comes to the bigger bore revolvers, I do prefer the longer barrels. I just feel like I get better performance out of them, and it weights the gun towards the front a little bit more and doesn't hurt my hand. Now, something that I do appreciate on this are the factory rubberized grips. It does seem to absorb the recoil a little bit more than maybe the wooden grips, but this is only when it comes to the most extreme and powerful cartridges. As I mentioned, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and so shooting a very powerful handgun for too long really does hurt me, and I'm going to hurt the rest of the evening. It's just one of those things that I'm going to have to deal with probably the rest of my life. 357 Magnum can do it a little bit to me. 38 Special, of course, is no problem. 44 Special is no problem, but 44 Magnum definitely is. So let's just see the difference in recoil and how this thing shoots with 44 Magnum over 44 Special. And all I can say is, ouch. Yeah, that hurt. It hurt a lot for me, but the gun still is working accurate. I'm really impressed that Smith & Wesson can make such a durable handgun that can handle loads like that. I will say there is a little bit of a fun factor because you realize how much power 44 Magnum is. And I think that my shot placement wasn't as good with 44 Special because I was anticipating that recoil. So if you're looking for someone, as I said, that's going to review big bore revolvers, I might not be the exact person you want to see, because there's guys that can go out there and shoot 500 Smith Wesson Magnum over and over and over and over again and not have any problem. And I'm not going to be that person. I'm just reviewing this from what I think is an average gun guy's perspective. This also goes into what I don't understand is the fascination with guns like 44 Magnum, because I'm not a hunter and I don't live in Alaska, as I mentioned like in the beginning of this video. But I do know there's a lot of just average gun guys that just think that's the most powerful thing I could possibly have. I really, really want it. And I just don't get that, because for me, going to the range, I want to be a pleasurable and fun experience. Something where I would have no problem putting 100, 200 rounds through the same firearm. One of the reasons why I love PCCs, or pistol caliber carbines. They're my favorite type of gun. I can sit there and plink all day. With a gun like this, I'm not going to be able to do it for very long. So what's the joy and the fun in that? Yeah, it's a cool piece to say, hey, look at this gun I have. Look how powerful it is. But if I don't enjoy shooting it, I just don't really want it or care about it in my collection. It doesn't mean that this gun is junk, because trust me, it is not. Smith & Wesson's 44 Magnums are the best, in my opinion. They are just fantastic firearms, and they're so darn well built. But for me personally, it's just too much of a revolver. But speaking of things being a little bit too much, I'm going to now go to the most powerful 44 Magnum cartridges I have, and this is from Double Tap. And I think you guys are going to see a huge difference from the Hornady to the Double Tap. And you're only going to get, once again, one cylinder of this through it, because it's all that I can take, and you're going to see the difference in power. And I can tell you, this gun handles it like a champ. It is manageable, but I know if you don't have RA like I do, it might be a little bit better. But still, it hurts. But I guess it is a little bit fun to say you shot something so powerful. So let's put some Double Tap through this and just see how it performs.
What we're going to do. You're going 5 yards. Take your time. 5 yards. Really slow down. Really isolate that trigger.
And once again, ouch. Yeah, that hurt a lot. But the gun handles it like a champ, just like I said. And I would expect nothing else from Smith & Wesson. So when it comes to the practicality of this revolver, I really don't see it. Is this a gun that I want in my collection? Not really. I would be perfectly fine having a 44 Special revolver over a 44 Magnum. Maybe having the 44 Magnum just for durability and only running 44 Special through it would be more my style. But for me, it's just too much of a revolver. I'm very happy with 357 Magnum and 38 Special. But I also understand that different people have different situations. If you're a hunter, or as I said, living in the Northwest or out in Alaska, and you have to worry about bears, and you're out in the wilderness and you need something like this, I think it's great. But for the average gun guy going to the range, I just don't see people picking this up and going and putting 150 or 200 rounds of 44 Magnum through this in a range trip. I just don't see this as a great revolver to introduce people to shooting with. In fact, one of the things I hate on YouTube is when I see people that are inexperienced shooters get handed some type of hand cannon like this, and they shoot it and they have so much recoil that it comes back and hits them in the face. All that does is scare people away from the Second Amendment. So this is definitely not a novice gun. For me, it's a niche gun and not something that I'm very interested in. However, I'm going to tell you, this gun is exceptionally well made. It is a fantastic gun. And if I was in the market for a 44 Magnum, I would definitely buy a Smith Wesson. They're kind of the forerunners in this cartridge, and they've been making them for so long. It's extremely powerful, they're reliable, they're well built using that forged metal. They're just fantastic revolvers. Now, if I'm only going to shoot this once in a while or have it as a conversation piece, just like I have this Model 29 here, I probably would go with the wood grips. But if you are going to shoot it more, I would try to find something that is going to be a little bit more comfortable for you. So maybe you want some finger grooves in those wood grips. Maybe you want something that's a little bit more rubberized, or maybe it doesn't matter to you at all. But for someone like me, as I said, with kind of a disability, it's not really a disability, but RA, something that's gonna hurt when I shoot this, I gotta have something that's gonna be the most comfortable for me. But then again, I'm not going to really enjoy shooting it for more than just a cylinder or two on the most powerful rounds. So for me, it's not practical. I don't want it, but the gun undoubtedly is well built. And if you like revolvers, you probably gotta have one in your collection. So on my star system, how would I rate the 629 Classic, otherwise known as the 629-6 from Smith & Wesson? Well, I'm definitely going to give this thing high marks because it does work well. I had no issues with it, and it handles 44 Magnum like a champ. I shoot it great in single action, terrible in double action, but for me, I have to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It's not bad. It's an overall really good review. Just the fact that I don't shoot it well double action, and yeah, it's probably a little bit more me. I feel like the double action pull on these triggers is a little bit too heavy, as in all Smith & Wessons, but their single actions are very refined and great. I love the fact it's stainless steel, but man, 44 Magnum just has too much recoil, and I can't enjoy it as much as I probably could if I didn't have rheumatoid arthritis. But with all that said, I know there's going to be some people that are upset at me saying, you didn't rate that revolver high enough. It's incredible. And I do agree. There is nothing wrong with this revolver. Mechanically, it is very well built. I think aesthetically, it's very nice. Might not look as nice as a Colt Anaconda, but it's great. Smith & Wesson makes a fantastic product. And if somebody really wanted a 44 Magnum, I would recommend this particular pistol because it's easy to clean, it's reliable, and it's durable. But overall, the shooting experience lowers it for me because 44 Magnum is just too much of a cartridge for me in a revolver. So for me, 3.5 stars out of 5 for the Smith & Wesson 629 Classic. Great revolver, might not be for me or have a place in my collection. But thank you, Ken, for lending it to the channel. I did enjoy getting a chance to shoot it. It's just something different. So let me know what you guys think. Did I get this review wrong? And do I bring up legitimate concerns? Do some of you other people also have issues with very powerful cartridges? I'd love to know in the comment section below. So, as always, thanks for watching.